Hello, today I'm going to follow on from the blended sky which I did last time and show you how to do a snowy landscape, which is something that I know a few of you have asked me for. It can be a bit difficult representing snow because obviously there's so much white, but the idea is to get lots of texture in your piece, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So first of all, I'm going to bring you across and show you what I've got over here, which is all the pieces that I'm going to use. So I've got some pieces of cotton and some lovely mulberry bark, some beautiful vintage lace, some unbleached cotton wadding, some sari silk, some beautiful white velvet, another piece of white vintage lace, little piece of cream chiffon, and here we have some cotton with some writing on it, and then another bit of the lovely white velvet. So if I move you back over to here where you can see what I'm doing, and I'll make a start. I'm going to be adding all the pieces in one go and spraying them using 505 temporary adhesive spray, and then just laying them on as we go. Doesn't need much of a spray, just a few little pieces, and then you just start to put these in place. Just press them down. Now then, I'm going to use this piece of mulberry bark. Usually I use this white mulberry bark for waves, but here I'm going to use it to represent the tops of the hills, because often with snowy weather you get the tops of the hills that are actually still snowy long after the rest of it is gone. And then following on from that, we're going to use this beautiful bit of vintage lace, and you can manipulate this. It is a straight piece, but you can manipulate it once you've sprayed it so that it looks a bit more natural. That is representing your hedgerow, and then we come down a little bit further. Here we are in this lovely bit of unbleached wadding, lovely and soft as well. And next we've got the sari silk. I'm just layering these up just quite randomly. The sari silk is lovely. You've got some, I don't know if you can see, but you've got some lovely little tufty bits there, and that will just give a little bit of colour, because the idea is that the snow has just started to melt a little bit, and then you can see the grass poking through and just little areas that aren't quite as white as some of the others. So just building this up gradually. A little bit of that there. Beautiful vintage lace, which gives that impression of maybe a little bush or something like that that's starting to stick up out of it all. And then this lace can go over the top like that. Now then, obviously I'm sure a lot of you think that this looks, I make this look really easy. I have actually spent time fiddling and prepping in advance. I should have a video that was probably an hour long, so please don't think when you do it that I can do it all in sort of 10 minutes and why can't you, because actually I've been playing around a bit beforehand and prepping the pieces that I want to cut. So last piece now, just down there like that, there. So that is now all ready for stitching. So I'm just going to pull my machine forward a little bit and we can get stitching. So basically I'm going to be using clear thread and just stitching all the pieces down just to secure them in place, because this is going to be quite a simple looking piece. There's not going to be a huge amount of detail, so everything will sort of speak for itself, as it were. And then you just stitch gradually along, stitching along the top of this. Just securing this all in place. Don't have to be too precise, the lines don't have to be straight, to be honest. It's better if they wobble around a bit. As long as you've got all the pieces secured down somewhere, they don't all have to be secured completely. Pull that off and cut the threads. Just push that back and cut off all these other bits. Then I'm just going to offer up this over the top to make sure that I've got everything covered. So I will just pick this up and bring this over here so that you can see. So this is all secured down now. And what you really want to do now is add in any detail that you might like to put in. Now then, I want to keep this a fairly soft piece, but obviously I want to represent a little bit of the landscape and that sort of moorland feel to it. So I've got a few things that I'm going to do. One is I've got a lovely, it's all got fluff on it now, a lovely little vintage rusty washer. And you can see here I've got a little button. So these are going to go into here. Now then, I've left this specifically so that I can pull it up slightly and just tuck this underneath so that you don't get all of it showing. So this is why sometimes you don't want to stitch right to the edge, because that sort of gives the representation of rocks and things on the moor and on the landscape, but it looks much more natural if you can just tuck them down a little bit. So those I will then secure with clear thread, just hand stitching, just securing them by just going over them in a couple of places. And then I'm going to do something new today, which I haven't done before, and I'm going to use pins. I've fished out these pins from my pin pot. There's some of my older ones, some that are getting a little bit rusty, a little bit past it. And because it's such a small piece and I didn't want anything too chunky to represent fencing and fence posts, I'm going to use pins. These are flat top pins. They're not the ones with the round bobbles on the top, so they're quite old pins basically. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck them in under here, and you just push them in just as you go. Now my fingers are a little bit sticky from spraying things, so it makes it a little bit tricky, and you just push them down like that, and then maybe another one here. This fencing is supposed to be moorland fencing that isn't straight and probably a bit old, like that. Push that in there, and then over here we'll pop some more. So And this is just a little bit more closer together, just to give that feel that it's very vintage and not really sort of a little bit wonky, basically. There we are. Now then, what I'm going to do now, these are actually quite well attached, and if you didn't want to stitch them in place, they would probably stay where they are. What I'm going to do is just stitch using some grey thread so that you get the actual lines of the fencing coming across a little bit. But you could do that by hand. I'm going to do that by machine. So I'm just going to pop you back down here while I change the thread. Just thread up my machine. Which is sometimes easier said than done. There we are. Right, so I shall take this off and move this forward again so that you can see. Just going to bring this up here, down and up, and bring your bobbin thread up like you normally do. Tuck that under there. Make sure that's secure, and off you go. So again, it doesn't need to be straight, and you just have to be a bit careful as you go over the pins, because you don't really want it to. But I'm going to stop that one there and bring it back there. You don't want to go too fast over the pins, because you could just absolutely wreck your needle. So a bit of a wonky line, that's fine. That's there. And then we will do the same over here, possibly. Just there. There we are, and then we just cut away, bring that round, and then it's just a case of cutting off all these bits in between to make it all nice and tidy. Let's cut here. There you are. And then we just offer up our picture. And there you have it. Apart from sewing these in, it's now all complete, and you've got a lovely snowy landscape. I hope you've enjoyed watching today, and I hope you're inspired to have a go. I'll see you next time.